This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist. Because we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
Hey there, crime enthusiasts. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. I am Alexis Knight. I will be guiding you through some of the most controversial and divisive cases that have ever hit the headlines. Here on True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion, we do not just tell you what happened. We're going to dive deep into the murky waters of public debate, where the facts are never as clear as they seem, and everyone has an opinion. Today, we're stepping into one of our top categories called Mad or Bad. This is a series where we explore cases where the central question is whether the accused was suffering from some kind of mental illness, something so severe that they could not control their actions, or whether they knew exactly what they were doing and they chose to do it anyway. Was it madness or was it malice? That's the question in these types of cases. And the first case that I want to look at here, it's one of the most tragic and complex that you're ever going to hear about, but you probably have heard about it. It's the story of Andrea Yates, a Texas mother who in 2001 drowned her 5 children in the family bathtub. Was she a woman driven to the brink by postpartum psychosis? Or was she the calculating killer who made a chilling decision? It's a case that has divided experts, the public, and even her own family. Remember, no matter what side you're on, you believe you are right, and the person on the other side, so do they. So buckle up here, guys, because we're going to dive into this story, a story that will challenge everything you think you know about justice, motherhood, and mental illness. Was Andrea Yates a mother tormented by a mental illness so severe that she lost all sense of reality? Or was she a cold, calculated murderer who chose to end the lives of her 5 young children in cold blood? Was this a tragic case of postpartum psychosis that pushed a fragile mind to the breaking point? Or did Andrea know exactly what she was doing? You decide. And with that, let's get into it. On June 20th of 2001, in a quiet neighborhood in Houston, Texas, a mother of 5, Andrea Yates, did the unthinkable. One by one, she filled the bathtub with water and drowned each of her children. Noah 7, John 5, Paul 3, Luke 2, Mary 6 months. The news of the crime shocked the nation, triggering a wave of horror, disbelief, and grief. Andrea Yates, a woman who had been described by those who knew her as a devoted, loving mother, was arrested and charged with capital murder. But as details of her life began to surface, this case took on a new complexity. This wasn't just a story of a mother killing her children. It was a case that would challenge our understanding of mental illness, motherhood, and the criminal justice system. Andrea had a documented history of severe mental health struggles, including postpartum depression and psychosis. She had been hospitalized multiple times and was prescribed powerful antipsychotic meds. In the weeks leading up to this crime, she had been in and out of psychiatric care, and her doctors had warned her husband, Rusty Yates, of the dire risk that Andrea posed to herself and potentially to others. But these warnings, they were not fully heeded. On the surface, the facts seemed very straightforward here. Andrea confessed to the murders, She called 911 herself. She showed police the scene. No resistance. But was it really that simple? Was this the result of a mind lost to psychosis? Or did Andrea, in a lucid moment, make the cold decision to end the lives of her children? It just seems too horrific to see it any other way but one, doesn't it? Yet, this country and the world, they have been at battle on this case since it happened. As we unravel the details of Andrea Yates' life, her mental health battles, and the events leading up to that fateful day, we ask, what drives a mother to commit such a crime, and where does the line between madness and guilt lie? Now, Andrea Yates, she was born in 1964. She was the youngest of 5 children, and they were a religious family. She was a top student, a skilled swimmer who graduated as class valedictorian. She pursued nursing and worked at a cancer treatment center where she was known for her compassion and her diligence. In 1993, she marries Rusty Yates, a devout Christian, and together they planned to have as many kids as possible, believing that it was their religious duty. But after the birth of her 4th child, Andrea's mental health began to unravel. She experienced a series of debilitating postpartum depressions that escalated into full-blown psychosis. Her condition became so severe that she attempted suicide 2 times and was hospitalized on multiple occasions, and was finally diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. A rare but very serious mental health disorder. It can cause hallucinations and delusions and severe mood disturbances. Despite doctors advising against having any more kids due to her fragile mental state, Andrea and Rusty, they have their 5th child, Mary. Soon after Mary's birth, Andrea's condition deteriorated further. She reported that she was hearing voices. She was believing she was a bad mother. She also was believing that her children were destined for eternal damnation. And she felt compelled to kill them because she wanted to save their souls, a belief that many viewed was a clear sign of her delusional thinking. Her psychiatrist prescribed Haldol. This is a strong antipsychotic medication that initially did seem to help. However, Rusty Yates decided to discontinue these meds because he believed that, Andrea could just manage this on her own without medication. However, her condition spiraled out of control again, and just a month later, she committed the crime that would change the Yates family and the public's perception of postpartum mental illness forever. First question here, how many of you knew that she was on this antipsychotic, and how many of you knew that her husband stopped her from taking it? This was not plastered all over the news, but this did happen. Remember how we're looking at the cases in this particular podcast. This case then becomes something more. It's not just about the tragic event, which of course is horrific, but we're trying to understand the complexities here of mental illness and other things, and how it intersects with the law, and how society responds when a crime is committed by someone in a state of extreme psychological distress. Did Andrea Yates have the capacity to understand the consequences of her actions? Right? We've heard this on TV and everywhere about this case. Or was she in the grip of a psychotic delusion so powerful that she truly believed that she was saving her children? Was she mad, or was this malice? Well, to understand the complexities of Andrea Yates' case, we really need to take a look closely at her mental health journey and the circumstances that led up to that tragic morning in June of 2001. Andrea Yates' struggle with mental health began after the birth of her 4th child, Luke, in 1999. Soon afterwards, she suffered from severe postpartum depression. She experienced panic attacks and hallucinations. She had insomnia. Andrea became withdrawn. She refused to eat or drink after a while, and she made her first suicide attempt in June of 1999. Luke was born in February. And in June, though, she's overdosing on pills. Her husband, Rusty.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist, because we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
Found her in time to rush her to the hospital, where she was admitted to the psychiatric unit. Now, her condition deteriorated rapidly. During her stay at the hospital, she just flat out refused to even speak. She wouldn't eat, and she was observed scratching at her scalp, and she even scratched it until it bled. She became catatonic, really, exhibiting a complete withdrawal from reality. And this is what prompts doctors to prescribe Haldol. This is a potent antipsychotic medication, which it did seem to stabilize her condition, but only temporarily. Andrea was diagnosed with severe postpartum psychosis. This is a very rare disorder marked by delusions, hallucinations, and confusion. Her psychiatrist, a Dr. Eileen Starbranch, warned Rusty Yates that Andrea's condition was severe and that having more children could trigger another psychotic episode. But despite these warnings, Andrea's mental health continued to be precarious. The Yates family continued with their plans to have more children. This was all rooted in their religious beliefs and a desire for this large family. In November of 2000, Andrea did give birth again to their fifth child, Mary. Soon after Mary's birth, Andrea's mental state again began to unravel, however. She begins hearing voices, experiencing visual hallucinations, and she was showing signs of extreme paranoia. She believed Satan was speaking to her, and she felt she had failed as a mother. She often would tell Rusty that she was such a bad mother, that she needed to be punished even. Andrea's mental condition worsened to the point where she stopped speaking at home even, stopped taking care of herself, and she became fixated on religious themes. Her behavior grew increasingly erratic. She would pull clumps of her hair out and self-harm herself in different ways. In March of 2001, she attempts suicide the second time by holding a knife to her neck, stating that she felt this call to harm herself. So she was hospitalized again in Texas at the Devereaux, Texas Treatment Network, where Dr. Mohammed Saeed treats her. During this time, Andrea's family was under intense strain, right? Rusty Yates believed his wife could recover, and she could do it with faith and support. So he hired a private nurse to assist during the day, but then he would continue to leave Andrea alone with the children, even though her condition was fragile. Despite the doctor's recommendations to keep a close eye on Andrea, Rusty decided to take her off Haldol, and that's in April of 2001. And he did this because he thought that the side effects were too much for the benefits that he thought she was getting. Without the medication, though, Andrea's symptoms rapidly worsened. She stops talking, she won't eat. She exhibited strange behaviors like reading the Bible obsessively and pacing back and forth for hours. Now, on June 20th in 2001, this is not that much later, this is the day of the murders, Rusty leaves for work like he always does, and he leaves Andrea at home with the children. Her mother-in-law, Dora, who often helped care for the children, was supposed to arrive an hour later. Now, in that narrow window of time, Andrea methodically drowned all 5 of her kids. She started with Mary, the youngest, who was just 6 months old. You know how small that is. And then she moved on to the boys in order of age. As she held each child under the water, she believed she was saving them from eternal damnation. When Noah, her oldest son, saw what was happening, he did try to run, but Andrea caught him and drowned him last. Afterward, she calmly called 911 and reported that she had killed her children. So when police arrived, Andrea's there. She showed no signs of panic or distress, and she just led them to the bodies, saying, "I killed my children." The officers noted her calm demeanor and the clinical way that she described what she had done. So, Andrea Yates was arrested on the spot and charged with capital murder. The news, of course, spread rapidly as it would, and the public reaction was immediate. Many just could not fathom how a mother could kill her children so calmly and methodically, while at the same time others began to question how someone with such a severe history of mental illness could ever be held fully accountable for her actions. In police custody, Andrea confessed to the murders multiple times, explaining that she believed that she was saving her children from hell. She told investigators she had been a bad mother, that she was unworthy of raising her children, and that by killing them, she was sending them to heaven. They were going to be better off. Her statements were consistent, and her delusional belief system added more complexity to the question of her culpability. Now, as the trial approached, the central question was whether Andrea Yates should be considered legally sane at the time of the crime. This would become the focal point of the case, leading to intense debates both inside and outside of the courtroom. Now, I know that we all have heard of Andrea Yates, but we're almost done here with this case. We still need to explore the legal arguments made by both sides here. Because did we all really pay attention to all of that? What evidence did the defense present to support her insanity plea? And how did the prosecution argue that Andrea knew exactly what she was doing? All right, let's continue and get into all of this. To fully grasp the complexity of Andrea Yates' case, we do need to delve into the courtroom battle that unfolded, where the defense and the prosecution, they present starkly different narratives about what led to these tragic deaths. All right, the defense team. It was led by George Parnham, and he argued that Andrea Yates was legally insane at the time of the murders. They built their case around Andrea's long history of severe mental illness, particularly her diagnosis of postpartum psychosis. I mean, this is serious. It's a rare and debilitating condition characterized by hallucinations, delusions, and an inability to distinguish between reality and imagination. So this is not something to take lightly. Psychiatric testimonies, okay? The defense presented testimony from multiple psychiatric experts who had examined Andrea both before and after the murders. Dr. Lucy Puryear, a psychiatrist who evaluated Yates, she testified that Andrea suffered from severe psychosis, which caused her to believe that killing her children was the only way to save them from eternal damnation. The defense argued that these delusions were so overpowering that Andrea could not distinguish right from wrong, fulfilling that legal criteria for insanity, at least in Texas. Another key witness for the defense, Dr. Philip Resnick, he's a forensic psychiatrist and expert on postpartum psychosis. Well, he explained that Andrea's symptoms, like hearing voices, believing she was possessed, and feeling an urgent need to protect her children from Satan, these were all classic signs of a psychotic break. He testified that Andrea was unable to control her actions due to mental illness. All right, and what about Andrea? What about her own words? I mean, the defense had to touch on this. So they highlighted Andrea's confessions and her statements that she made to the police and to psychiatrists, where she repeatedly claimed to believe that she was saving her children's souls from hell. Well, these statements were presented to support the idea that her actions, they weren't driven by malice, but rather by this distorted sense of love and duty to her children. And it was all due to that psychosis. And the defense team pointed to Andrea's long history of mental illness, including multiple suicide attempts, the hospitalizations, and her doctor's warnings about the risk of another psychotic episode if she had more children. I mean, they argued that her condition was poorly managed, exacerbated by her husband's decision to take her off antipsychotic meds, despite expert medical advice. The defense aimed to show that Andrea was a deeply ill woman. She needed treatment, not punishment. And, I mean, hearing all of that, it does seem to make sense, doesn't it? The other side cannot have any.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist. Because we're all better with help. Visit BetterHelp.com/StopTheStigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
Thing to say here that could matter to us. We've already made a choice. She was too sick, and she just did it without thinking. She didn't think at all. She was not in control of her thoughts. This is where public opinion begins, right? And that's how strong it can be and how easy it can be formed and how quickly. But there was a prosecution. There was another side. So they wanted to talk about other things like premeditation and her awareness of her wrongdoing. So the prosecution was led by attorney Kaylin Williford. And Kaylin argued that Andrea Yates was fully aware of her actions and that she deliberately chose to kill her children. Deliberately. They contended that she was guilty of capital murder and that she needed to be held accountable for her actions. They pointed out that Andrea planned. There was evidence of planning, that she waited until her husband left for work, and she knew her mother-in-law was coming, so she had to get this done quickly. So she chose a moment consciously when she would be alone with those kids. This was presented as evidence of premeditation, and they argued that Andrea knew what she was about to do and deliberately created the circumstances to carry it out without interference. Now, they also noted that Andrea called 911 immediately after the murders, and that this would indicate that she was aware that she had done something that she needed to report to the law, that she knew there was something wrong. The prosecution argued that this demonstrated her awareness of the criminal nature of her actions, what she had just done. The prosecution sought to also challenge the extent of Andrea's psychosis, bringing in their own expert witnesses who suggested that while she was certainly depressed and had mental health issues, she was not legally insane. Dr. Park Dietz, a forensic psychiatrist, testified for the prosecution, and he argued that Andrea knew her actions were wrong, but she chose to act on her delusions. He cited her ability to recount the murders in detail and her understanding of the legal consequences, such as stating, "I knew that they were going to take me away." I mean, this is all evidence, they say, that she was aware of what was right and what was wrong and her own actions. Dr. Dietz also famously referenced an episode of the TV show Law and Order, which you also probably heard about on the news, guys. This claimed that Andrea may have gotten the idea of using the insanity defense from a fictional character. This statement was later found to be inaccurate, by the way, but it did play a significant role in shaping the jury's perception at the time. And didn't we hear that all over the news all the time? And still do, kind of, right? If people talk about this case. But we're never talking about the relevancy. All right, well, the prosecution, overall, they frame Andrea as a woman who, despite her mental health struggles, made this conscious choice to kill her children. And they argued that she was competent enough to know that what she was doing was illegal and that it was morally wrong. The prosecution also emphasized that the premeditation aspect in this, it was there. They argued that Andrea's actions were planned and executed with complete and full knowledge of their consequences. So we have some points of contention here. I mean, was Andrea truly insane? The defense's argument hinged on Andrea's inability to distinguish from right and wrong due to her severe mental illness. Prosecution, however, they argue that her actions before and after the murders indicate a level of awareness and intentionality that's inconsistent with the legal definitions of insanity. And when it gets down to this level, when you're dealing with the law, it's either in the law or out, right? It's either right or wrong. Okay, what about that impact of all the medical testimony? I mean, the conflicting expert testimonies, they were there. They created significant ambiguity for the jury. while the defense's experts portrayed Andrea as someone in the grip of a severe psychotic break. The prosecution's experts, they suggest that she had moments of lucidity and awareness, that they can't be overlooked. So now, what about the media, the things that people heard, public perception here? The reference to that Law and Order episode by Dr. Dietz, which was later debunked, like I said, this becomes, over time in this case, a point of controversy, and it definitely impacted public perception. The media also played a substantial role in framing Andrea as either this deeply troubled mother or a very calculated murderer. Now, further complicating the case with all of this, these are very different sides. Are you angry with her, or do you feel sorry for her? In this next part here, we are going to look at the controversy that completely erupted over Andrea Yates' verdict, the impact of the media on public opinion, and the intense debates that still even continue around this case. And that's why we're talking about it. I mean, was justice served here? Or did society fail to understand the true nature of her mental illness? I mean, just because this case happened so long ago, it doesn't mean it's gone, because these public opinion cases where no one can agree, right? We always have the two sides. And in some cases like this, those sides they're just huge, right? But this case, these kinds of cases, they stick around because no one's satisfied with the answer, and they're always ready to defend their side of the debate. Like if someone brings it up, I know what I think and I have my stuff to say, and that's it, right? I mean, even today, this case, Andrea Yates, it remains one of the most polarizing and debated cases in recent American legal history. It has ignited fierce debate among the legal professionals all over the place, mental health experts, and the general public. People are still talking. It's prompting questions about the intersection of mental illness and criminal responsibility, and this is a never-ending question. We never can settle. There is no one right answer that crosses everybody. Every case has to be looked at individually, and even then, when we try to look so hard, it's still hard to believe that we can completely prove one side or the other. All right, for this case, and to fully understand why this case is so controversial, we do have to look at several key aspects that have kept the public divided. And remember, a lot of us, most of us may know of the Andrea Yates case, and we're not here to retry the case. We're here to discuss the very complicated decision-making that we all go through in the public in making a decision of what side to be on in cases like this where it's not cut and dried. The things of the mind are always hard to confirm or deny and to take a side, to represent something. Every case is different. One of the central points of controversy in this case, the Andrea Yates case, is the legal standard for insanity, okay? Because what is that? And how was it applied here in this case? Now, in Texas, the standard for legal insanity requires that the defendant at the time of the crime did not know that their actions were wrong because they have a severe mental defect or disease. Okay? So, what's the support for the insanity defense here in this case? Many mental health professionals and advocates argue that Andrea's case was a clear example of postpartum psychosis, a rare but severe mental health condition that can lead to a distorted way of thinking, as well as a detachment from reality. And they point out that Andrea genuinely believed that she was saving her children from eternal damnation, and that her actions were driven by her delusional beliefs rather than any malice or intent. These proponents believe that her insanity defense should have been straightforward. Now, opposition to the insanity defense, okay, because critics argue that the insanity defense is often misused or over-applied, allowing defendants to escape their accountability. In Andrea's case, they point to her planning. They also point to her calm demeanor after the murders, as well as her decision to call 911, saying this is all evidence that she knew her actions were wrong. She knew she had to do them when no one else was around, thus disqualifying her from any kind of insanity plea. The prosecution's narrative that Andrea was aware of her actions resonated with those who believe that mental illness, however severe, should not excuse a heinous crime. All right, well, there's another piece here, right? We have the defense, we have the prosecution, but what's the role of media and public perception? Because, the media played a significant role in shaping public opinion about Andrea Yates and her actions. From the moment this story broke, it was covered extensively by news outlets everywhere, with sensational headlines, and they often labeled her as a monster mother, killer mom. Now, we always see this sensationalism, and do we really think, though, about the impacts of what it's doing? We can look away from it, we can enjoy it sometimes, we can be annoyed by it sometimes, but what's the impact, no matter what we're doing? Because many critics will argue that the media's sensational portrayal of Andrea Yates, it had biased public opinion against her. It focused on the horror of the crime rather than her mental health struggles. The trial was highly publicized, and some feel that the coverage fueled public outrage, and that it all made it harder for the jury to remain impartial. Andrea's own demeanor, often appearing subdued and withdrawn and even emotionless, was frequently interpreted as a lack of remorse rather than a symptom of her mental illness. As more details emerged about Andrea's mental health history, some public sympathy grew for her situation. Documentaries, books, news specials began to focus on the complexities of postpartum psychosis and the failures of the mental health system to adequately support women like Andrea. This shift has led to an ongoing debate about how mental illness is treated in the legal system and society's understanding of it. Another source of controversy here is whether Andrea's eventual acquittal on the grounds of insanity truly served justice, or did it highlight systemic failures in mental health treatment. There are many mental health advocates out there that argue that the case undergoes a significant gap in how postpartum psychosis is recognized and treated. They point to the lack of adequate mental health resources and the stigma of seeking help in the first place. And then those gaps in the wonderful healthcare system that left Andrea without the support she needed. Critics believe that had Andrea received proper treatment and intervention, this tragically might have been avoided. Others, however, they believe that her acquittal by reason of insanity sets a problematic precedent, because they argue that a crime of such magnitude, this demands a clear consequence, regardless of any mental health status, and that the legal system should place more emphasis on the accountability part of this. They see the verdict as a failure to deliver the justice needed here for the 5 young victims, and a reflection of societal reluctance to hold the mentally ill accountable. Dr. Park Dietz' erroneous testimony about that Law and Order episode, which falsely claimed that there was a show mirroring Andrea's crime, this played a significant role in shaping public perception and influencing the jury. Although the mistake was discovered after the trial, a retrial was ordered. The damage was already done at that point. This moment fueled the narrative that Andrea's trial was marred by misinformation and unfair bias. It raised concerns about the reliability of expert testimonies in these high-stake trials and sparked discussions about the potential influence of sensationalist claims on jury decisions. Finally, this case has broader implications for how society views and treats women's mental health issues, especially concerning postpartum disorders. There's a stigma there, and her case brought postpartum psychosis to the forefront, even though a lot of people did not want to look at it. This is a condition that's often misunderstood. It's often underdiagnosed. And this case raised awareness about the need for more support here, and the research we need, and resources for women experiencing postpartum mental health issues. However, it also led to public confusion and a little bit of public fear, potentially stigmatizing those who suffer from severe mental illnesses. It's funny how when things get really sensitive, we just don't want to talk about them. But, if you're going to have a mental illness and murders, we might want to discuss it to find out how we could, not have that happen. But it's just uncomfortable. And just like this case is uncomfortable from the beginning, these kinds of cases always are. And that's why the public really does want that final answer. And each individual wants it for themselves to feel better about their own lives. And so when it's messy like this, we really do want to look away and walk away. And we want to believe that a decision was made, and then we just don't want to hear about it again, and we don't want to be involved in it again. But what happens is this question always remains. Is it the illness or is it the person? Do we even believe in the illness? I guess it has to start there, right? Because here we are. We're at the end of this journey. And we went through one of the most complex and debated cases in recent memory. This was the case of Andrea Yates, a mother of 5 who, in the grip of a profound mental illness, committed an act that shocked the world. Or was this a mother who, despite her struggles, made a clear and conscious decision to end the lives of her children? Was it madness? Or was it something more calculated and sinister? If insanity has to be that you are aware of what you're doing and you know it will have bad consequences, what about in this case, though? Within her delusion, she knew that the regular world would not accept this and it would be wrong. But within her delusion, she felt like she was doing everything right. So yes, she knew there would be consequences, but because of her delusion, can we know what that really meant to her? And was she really trying to commit murder in the sense we think of it? Or in her mind, was she really doing this wonderful and beautiful thing? The never-ending question. The facts have been laid out. The arguments have been made here. And the public debate continues to this day, and it will after you listen to this. We have explored the depths of Andrea Yates' mental health struggles, the legal battles that followed, and the intense controversy that has kept this case alive in the court of public opinion. And so now it's maybe your turn to decide if you can. Do you believe Andrea Yates was a victim of a severe mental illness, absolutely unable to control any of her actions or understand any of their consequences? Should the legal system have treated her with compassion and provided her with the mental health care that she so clearly needed? Or do you think she knew exactly what she was doing, that she planned her actions, and that she should be held accountable like anyone else who commits a crime like this of murdering several? What does justice really look like in a case like this? Is it punishment? Is it rehab? Or is it something else entirely? How do we as a society balance compassion for mental illness with the need for accountability in such a tragic case like this? I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment, let us know what you think, and join the discussion. Was Andrea Yates mad, or was she bad? This is Alexis Knight, and you have been listening to True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. Stay tuned for more cases that challenge what we think about justice, responsibility, and the human mind. Until next time, guys, stay safe, keep questioning. This is Alexis Knight.